In 1920, Republican Warren G. Harding is elected President of the United States. After World War I, American society tried to recover. They were wearied and tired of chaos and war. They wanted to return to the simpler times of the Gilded Age, one where America was isolated and only cared about the business of America. During the campaign of 1920, Warren G. Harding promised to return to those simpler times. He assured the American people that America's present need is not heroics, but healing. No nostrums, but normalcy. Harding's legacy as president is one of incompetence, scandal, and hands-off politics. Harding looked presidential, but he was anything but. What Harding really was a good old boy of the Republican Party. He was fond of gambling, drinking, and womanizing. He had extremely poor judgment in his cabinet selections. Harding was simply put up by the Republican Party to win the election because he looked more presidential than his opponent. Because he was more of a puppet of the old guard conservatives in the Republican Party, and Harding was so aloof on matters, Harding's presidency was dominated by people behind the scenes, and not by Harding himself.
Harding's political philosophy dealt with the idea of lower taxes and lessening the government's role in business and society. Harding didn't really understand political issues. Harding appointed corrupt cronies to his cabinet. Because of this, they were referred to as the Ohio Gang. They were a group of poker-playing friends that Harding had running his cabinet. They took advantage of Harding's lack of knowledge to take bribes and undo reforms behind his back.
While in office, Harding focused on settling trade, war debts, and disarmament issues around the world. One major political accomplishment during the 1920s was the Kellogg-Briand Pact. In 1928, 15 world powers signed this pact, agreeing to disarm their navies and essentially outlawing war. However, there was no real way to enforce this pact, and therefore it was useless. How can you really stop war from occurring? Well, it was a good idea anyway.
The next accomplishment of the politics of the 1920s was the Fordney-McCumber tariff. It was signed in 1922 and raised tariffs on imports coming to the United States. The idea was that if products coming from the outside cost more, consumers were more likely to buy products built in the United States, thus protecting U.S. businesses, helping them to succeed. The downside to the tariff was the United Kingdom and France were not able to sell their goods to the United States, thus costing them profits and not allowing them to repay their war debts.
Another political problem of the 1920s was war reparations and war debt. This led to the Dawes Plan. In 1924, U.S. investors loaned Germany $2.5 billion to pay back the war reparations they owed to Great Britain and France. Here's how the Dawes Plan worked. With the United States loaning money to Germany to pay off their war reparations to England and France, England and France can then pay back their war debts to the United States. Did you see what happened there? Essentially, we were paying Germany to pay Britain and France to pay us back war debts with our own money.
The Harding Presidency was defined by one of the biggest scandals in U.S. political history. This scandal was the Teapot Dome scandal. This was committed by Harding's Secretary of the Interior, Albert B. Fall. Fall sold oil-rich land to his oil friends for money. Due to this illegal transaction, Fall was able to pocket over $400,000 from the sale. Fall illegally moved protected land in Wyoming and California into his control. He then sold this conserved land to his friends who owned oil companies. Fall was the first cabinet member in history to be convicted of a felony.
When President Warren G. Harding suddenly dies of a heart attack in 1923, Americans mourned him. Although he wasn't a great president, he was likable. Into his footsteps came Vice President Calvin Coolidge. Humble, meek, and quiet, Silent Cal was the polar opposite to Harding in terms of personality. He focused on maintaining and broadening Harding's policies of lower taxes, less government, higher tariffs, and a pro-business stance. Although he wasn't flashy, he did lead a scandal-free administration that restored faith in the Republican Party. He was also responsible for signing the Kellogg-Briand Pact. Coolidge's presidency is defined by a statement he once made. He told the American people, "The business of America is business." Coolidge's philosophy focused on a hands-off approach to government, allowing businesses to flourish and the American economy to prosper.
The legacy of the Harding and Coolidge presidency is that it set the agenda for laissez-faire politics through the Roaring Twenties. It set the economic climate that would lead to prosperity, but ultimately an economic depression. This economic depression is one that would change the future of the United States forever.